All right, welcome to the second hour. It's actually a minute on the dot past the second hour. 10 p.m. I promised the table today is made up of my friends, Professor Fred Ogolla and Arnold Maliba, Strategic Communication Advisor to the ruling party, UDA, and of course a scholar and a strategist and of course a governance expert. Professor, thank you so much for coming, gentlemen, tonight. You know, I feel like just letting you talk. Like, yes. I just let you talk tonight. I don't ask a question, should I?
No.
And I can just let you talk.
You have to anchor us.
No, I just want to let you talk, right?
Yes.
And before I begin with the talk...
Can I have a problem that for
already we've not even started Maliba?
That for all the years we actually have been friends, you literally have refused to call me Maliba, yet that is my first name.
But it's Arnold Maliba.
No, it's not. You know much better than that. Everybody else calls me Maliba for a reason. That's my first name. Why?
No,
why
he wants to take me back to the village. I'll not accept.
Why we actually sit here and then he decides to go with a convention that is only known to other people? Quite unfair, but fine.
I will maintain that it's called Arnold Maliba.
Yes.
For the purpose of the conversation tonight.
Yes.
Imagine tunaitana huko nje tuachane nayo. Anyway, gentlemen, karibuni sana. I want to begin with something very interesting. Our top story tonight is about the new broadcast codes that were issued by CA Communication Authority today. Yeah. They were signed by David Mugonyi. Interestingly, when I got to the media, he was getting out. He went to Parliament, from Parliament, the DP's office, from DP's office to the President's office, and then right now he's at CA. But one of the things that they are trying with this, and they're going to force the media houses to implement this, is new regulations. So, for example, they outline the coverage, advertisement, the content. They've even talked about election coverage already, and it says that the use of news flash, so breaking news, before the beginning of an advert will be banned. I don't know why, and of course, they talk about interviews that are spontaneous. Like I can't just ambush Maliba on the street, for example, and ask Maliba an important question now that he's a strategic advisor. Gentlemen, I'll begin with you because they respond from the party. I'll begin with you. Yeah. Looking at these regulations, I know you have read them. Yeah. What really concerns you? Because there's a lot that concerns the media. And I bet once they are gazetted, we're moving to court. But tell me what concerns you.
What concerns me is that there is no business the government have in controlling the media. Media should self-regulate, because there's enough structures to do those things. Why is Kenya Kwanza concerned about controlling the media? That question should be asked. In fact, touching on the election, they say democracy dies in darkness. Tell me a country where judiciary and the media have no freedom, and I'll show you a state that has got what is called dictatorship. Remember that before then, there used to be one media house called KBC, where if the news was to take 30 minutes, yes. 15 minutes, if not 20, was dedicated to one person.
The government of the day.
Not even the government, one person to cook rice. Then after that, then some people will just be mentioned quickly in a hurry, then they leave. Everything was about today he was in Kabarak, today he was praying, then today he made so and so, then today he was taking out the cows. And I think we are moving there if you're not careful. Because I think that William Ruto has been in the media a lot. I think Uhuru was not in the media as he is. Kibaki even much less. And I think that trying to control the media is one way they have discovered. Like you see, for example, news gag, the one that comes to some of the media houses. You guys have some serious discussion here. They want to ensure they give you a script, that if you follow that script, you cannot educate Kenyans. Because these people are not only working on civic education people are giving, like people like us who come here, but actually they're even killing the education system. People should not be informed. That's what they want. They want people to remain in darkness. But I can tell them, I'm not even worried, because the emergence of digital media will actually be able to make them difficult to control. Nowadays, media is in somebody's phone. People can even say Fred Media House, and they go viral. So I'm thinking that just the way they're trying to change some things in the House in Finance Act that cannot work, they're also trying to change here. But my concern is, what is their intention?
What is the government's intention?
What do they fear the media of? And we only talk about the first stage, which is the public sector, the second estate, which is the private sector, the third estate, which is the NGO, and the fourth estate, which is the media. If you kill the fourth estate, it will be very difficult for things to balance out.
Okay. What is more concerning is the fact that the first act that I remember since David Mugonyi went to CAK, this cannot be his first act, having worked in the media, because I don't remember any, unless Maliba, you remember any other act by David, because this is the fourth, it's called the fourth edition of Programming Code for Broadcasting Services, the fourth.
First of all, it's not very proper to actually say that CA can be synonymized with David Mugonyi. CA is an institution, quite an anchored institution that has been around for some time. In any case, I'll actually say that it's one of the properly anchored institutions you'll actually find around. Not just by the capital they are able to raise, but even how they are able to deal with quite a complex sector, which is the media. So synonymizing, calling the code a David Mugonyi Act is actually to rain on the parade of the professionals who work at CA.
I said it's the first act after he became the Director General that is coming out with his signature.
So where he's been, there's been a lot of course working behind. There are a lot of board meetings that happen. There are policies stuff that happen. This is just one of those that is actually public facing that we are seeing. But be that as it is, I do not think that subsidiary legislation can actually threaten the place of the Constitution. There's no need for fear. The days when people would sell the fear, the kind that Professor is selling, that we are going into dark days, that kind of snake oil will sell in the days of old. But now, with the Constitution 2010, we are way beyond that. There are things you can't walk us back. You can't walk this country back away from the democracy we have. Things like Article 33, freedom of expression, which speaks to that, and then Article 34, freedom of the media. Those are things you can't walk away from. I know that we are used, it was a rite of passage that at some point lazima upambane na serikali. And now that the days of kupambana na serikali have been done away with because the things that used to work like the rites of passage have been done away with. If you want to demonstrate today, you just tell people, I'll be doing it this way and then this is how it works out. So you can't walk this back. The programming code, of course, is definitely geared towards healing a certain harm or some mischief that has been there. So what we actually need to ask is what is the mischief to address or the harm that has actually been there. So then, of course, you have got the Media Council of Kenya because, again, for the media, this is where self-regulation works quite well. So the Media Council of Kenya is there. They've actually been doing so well. This is something that will actually be subjected to stakeholder engagement, public participation, and more. It's not a place, I do not think that we are already at a place where we can actually start talking about the sky is falling. This business of just anything showing up from CA and guys are like, the sky is falling, that cannot be the way a mature media can actually be dealing with such. Because we are at a place where we know that we have got a very robust judiciary. Again, Ken, just wait, we've got a very robust judiciary. And that the judiciary has stopped even the president and the government in times where, for example, it's a tooth that's too long in growth. So we are a country that cannot be having this particular conversation. A robust judiciary that knows how to stand its ground, a people who know what their rights are. The media itself has actually come from so far, it's so mature that it cannot be moved away around with this. So this programming code, I don't want to even call it subsidiary legislation. Those guidelines at the tail end. So it has nothing on the Constitution 2010. Those are administrative stuff.
I'll ask you this. This is a public notice on the implementation of the fourth edition. Notifying the public of the intended implementation of the fourth edition of the broadcasting programming codes. And you're telling me, relax, this thing will go through.
It's intended, in your own words, it's a notice to the public.
We intend to.
We intend to.
Exactly.
Do you know what that is doing? It's inviting public participation in the conversations that we are having. We cannot start running and saying that the sky is falling. It has not fallen. We are having a conversation. This will actually be dealt with at different levels. So let us have a conversation, number one, that is objective. Number two,
around. I can hear him. Yes.
No.
I can hear him.
You guys can't run away from this.
I can hear you, yes.
We don't, again, we cannot have some sectors that are treated like sacred cows. We've said we are not going to treat politicians and leaders as special. There should be no sector that somehow we have to scatter around and walk on eggshells when we talk about them.
Okay.
So now that this is there, for example, have we engaged them and asked publicly what is the harm and if this is commensurate with what they're trying to address? So walking around, let's not really run. When talking about elections, do we really need to wait until 2027 when people will rush and say they've passed this because they want to rig an election? We are doing it now so that then if somebody has got a problem, you can go to court. We can engage on it now. I want to actually repeat this, that election is a process. It's not an event. So whatever they are doing here is something that has been reflected upon from the past.
Okay. With what aim? You said it's a mischief. I also think it's a mischief. But let me go to Prof.
Ken, no, there's something which is a big misnomer called public participation. You know, public participation cannot start after a bill being drafted. I used to work as a lobbyist in Brussels, where the Center for European Commission is. And you see that people who draft any bill or act have more say than someone reading it. Do you know that one word can have 10 meanings? So which one are you picking? So the guys who are drafting those things have really implanted mischief there. According to us, the world-class means of doing public participation is to start by bringing people together to discuss why are we doing this.
But do we have public participation for a code of conduct? We don't. That's why Maliba is going wrong. That's why I say I can hear you. There's no public participation.
I'm trying to tell you, even if you do public participation, the thing has been drafted. I put a meal on the table and say, now we're eating ugali and skuma. Then what do you have to say?
Add onions and tomatoes and something like that, Maliba.
This thinking, the thinking by Professor is quite...
Most, no. Just give it time. Most wars are lost before they begin. Most wars. Even Jesus said, before you go to war, know how many soldiers you have. Now, Kenya Kwanza knows that they have...
for the verse, okay.
No, Kenya Kwanza has got all the weapons to make this go through. First of all, they have a budget. For you as a member of the public, when they are going to say public participation taking place in Serena, who is going to pay your fare? Who is paying your allowances? For them, they have the budget, even the drafters. For you, if you want to do this drafting, you have to go, for example, the Media Council has to go and get a budget to work on how to address all those issues. According to me, this for me is not the right way. Now, are the opposition involved in the drafting of this one? Yet election has got many stakeholders. Election has got the opposition. Election has to get observers. Election has got the media. There's a lot more to this than someone can just simply tell us we should not fear. In fact, do you know why people are fearing? Kenya Kwanza has never won the trust of Kenyans. And that's why you cannot trust them to change the constitution.
How would you say that? And Kenyans voted them in. How would you say they've never won the trust of Kenyans?
Fertilizer, fake thing. Everything is fake.
But you said has never. You know, that's conclusive.
Kenya Kwanza government. They became a government after the election.
So you're saying the government? From
day one, they stood in Kasarani and told us that they found dilapidated economy, isn't it?
Okay.
So was that true? Secondly, sometimes from day one, lies began day one.
Okay.
And lies are continuing until today. And we have to end it.
Okay, let me listen to Mali. We need to end this topic. Yes.
First of all, it's important that we do not allow what I call a debate sprawl. He's now talking about fertilizer. He's all over the place. And you know, with that kind of wildfire, you might not actually do justice to a topic. So first of all, he is a governance expert, and he would know about what a policy cycle is. There's the origination and where it's starting. So if a draft cannot be the basis upon which then we are engaging, it means that it's not even been thought about. Because if you were to truncate the policy-making process, let me reduce the 7 or 8 processes to just 3, then you'll be talking about the 3 Ps. You're talking about the problem, you're talking about the politics around it, and then you're talking about the program. So the problem, here you're talking about the data. What is it? So from this data, then you can actually do what? Get the indicators that informs on how you solve, because for every problem you have got politics around it. So the data that you get from this informs how you solve the politics, and the way of doing it is through a program. So just if you are to reduce that to 3. So there is nothing wrong with having a draft that is actually going out that we intend to do this. So why are they notifying the public? So that there is input. Somehow it has to start, the policy cycle. So you can't say that somehow we must have this conversation without a draft. So, that's a very difficult way.
This is not a draft.
Second way.
Intention?
Second way. Second way.
What's the intention? Let me tell us.
Again, that is a reactionary question. What is the intention? Because somehow in this particular country, everything is suspicious.
But that's how you started, Maliba.
So
that's how you started.
Now, moving very fast.
Yes.
You know, we are at a place where everything in this country, somehow, you know, I talk about people have not earned the trust and everything else. You know, you are the only one who trusts Professor. That's why you have him on this show. He's not elected. But Kenya Kwanza is actually elected. They've been sworn in. And they were sworn in during the day. They were voted in during the day. They campaigned during the day. So Prof is trying to look for an election, or rather he will be campaigning in future and become something else. So at this particular point, if there's anyone Kenyans trust, it's actually Kenya Kwanza, because they voted for William Ruto, they voted for Kenya Kwanza. He is here saying that no one trusts.
That is completely incorrect.
So
trust is not measured by election.
So again,
we have elected thieves.
Again, you cannot have trust.
He has a right of response.
No, I have not even finished.
Yeah,
you see, this is the problem. You see,
yes.
We do not have, when we talk about trust deficiency, it cannot be on the scales of Professor Ogolla here. Because number one, as a human being, he has got his bias, he has got his privilege, he has got his prejudices. So his alone cannot be the scale upon which we actually talk about trust deficiency. Secondly, if we were going to base on anything, it's about the law, it's about what exists, the conventions that make us as a country. So Professor Ogolla alone cannot be a and by the way, when he says that he's speaking for Kenyans, which Kenyans elected him? Which Kenyans have sent him to actually come and speak here? Out of the 55 million of us, Professor does not know more than 10,000 people.
But does he have a right as Kenyan to
He has got a right to express his opinion, but he has no right to speak for Kenyans. At least when I sit here, I can speak for the party that I work for. But he cannot speak for Kenyans because Kenyans didn't send him. I cannot even pretend to speak for Kenyans.
Okay. Prof, right of response.
I think that I don't want even to respond to some of the things because they just look a little bit personal. Because when someone says to me that there's no one who trusts me, seriously speaking, how can you say that no one who trusts me? I am among the most trusted people. I am a governance expert. I can be called to train a board, and many people, you cannot call Gachaga to train a board of an organization. You cannot call Ichungwa even if they are trusted. We look, in fact, these are numbers. The trust measure, barometer, the least trusted people, a survey done in all countries, a government official scores 36%, isn't it? The most trusted person according to trust barometer is a professor. The world scores professors highest. Ken, you go to school, you go to your home now and give your son instruction, and the teacher gives a different one, they'll take the one for the teacher. This is true. So coming here to tell us that professors are not trusted, they're among the most honest people. I'm a scholar, I say the truth. So in trust between me and the politician, if you give a survey between me and the politician,
you'll score higher.
I'll score higher, that's the truth. So if you can hold you as Maliba, that's a story for another day. For me, I wanted just to tell Maliba something which is very important.
Yeah, because we need to
even for Kenya Kwanza.
Yes.
You cannot tell us that public participation begins with a draft. BBI never began with a draft. They went out to look at the issues that affect Kenya, isn't it? NADCO was about calling people to bring their views, isn't it? 2010 Constitution is talking about people went to Bomas. People presented different things is when they had a draft. So when you're telling us that things began from a draft, it is a misnomer, total misnomer. And I can tell you even at home, you cannot tell your wife now, this is the draft of how we want to live at home. Now let's do public participation. I'm sure that marriage won't work. There must be a way on which people respectfully engage citizens. Yes, there must be,
but
yes.
there's participation.
Yeah, so it cannot start from a draft.
Okay.
It starts from gathering views.
Okay.
We want to go for lunch.
Okay.
How do you want it?
How do we end this topic?
I would like, for me, this is how I would like to end it. First of all, the most trusted person is a mother. Motherhood is the best job on earth. It's only second to religious leaders. Now, the academy and the academia generally is and has always been thought to be a nursery of reason. But you and I know, including Professor knows here, that the academia has actually become a nursery of isms and a lot of extremes. So it cannot, therefore, be the sole place for where we actually talk about that can be the source of trust. If there is any way, but when I spoke about trust, I spoke about in relation to Kenya Kwanza, that he actually said that Kenyans don't trust it. I said, these Kenyans voted for this particular government. They did not vote for you. So if there is anyone, because we have got a scale upon which we can actually refer to, and here, this is universally acceptable in our situation, that the person you trust and the person you think will actually work for you going forward is the person you vote for.
Okay.
So there is a demonstrable process to that end.
So, gentlemen,
every other thing he has actually said is actually very good theory.
You have succeeded in taking us away from muzzling the media and this
But
broadcast
let me just
I need to go to another topic.
I'll just give you.
Yes.
And being a scholar, there's what you call a Delman Trust Barometer. All the factors are there. I don't speak theory. There's what you call a Delman Trust Barometer. Even the one of 2024 shows that politicians are the least trusted in society. As you go, you find a CEO, regulators, industry experts, then you go to a professor. That's the truth of the matter.
Okay.
And I want to say...
That is one tool. Who is that? You actually...
I mean, this is based
What's
on
the name?
research.
It's one tool.
It's based on research.
Just go back
Which
to the
one
name.
is yours?
It's one tool.
Guys.
One tool.
Guys, this is not about who can be trusted and who cannot be trusted. I just needed to understand what happens to this code of ethics. I'm going to call you back, gentlemen, to talk about this. If there's no public participation, Maliba, I know where you live. Prof, I know where you live. I'll call you, I'll look for you, so that we discuss this finally when it's concluded. But from where I sit, I doubt if these regulations, right, this implementation of programming codes are going to be subjected to a public participation.
Can I ask you, Ken, a question? Just on the
No,
same.
you're not supposed to ask me a question.
Well, I'll just ask, just allow me, for purposes of this particular conversation. Is there any process in this country that is above public participation or court action? There is none. So these regulations, that's what I'm actually saying, we cannot start running around saying that the sky is falling.
Okay.
If these regulations have got any challenge, the people, the media, including CA themselves, can actually go back to it. They're just regulations, for heaven's sake. I said that up above there, you have got Article 34. If these regulations are in contravention of Article 34, they cannot stand.
Okay.
But I said, before we jump that particular gun, can we ask what is the harm these regulations seek to heal? Because what is being lost in this particular discussion is one thing, that no one is talking about the harm the code is trying to actually address. Somehow we don't want to address that. We are speculative and going forward to talk about some mischief, conjecture. We have actually started doing abracadabra here, totally getting into spaces that is not our own. We have become magicians here, thinking about tomorrow that has not come yet.
Trust me, Maliba, this one I'll tell you for a fact. There is a mischief they're trying to address. We'll find out.
There is harm they're trying to heal.
There is mischief.
You guys are saying mischief that will come.
What's the intention?
That might come.
This is
that might be an intended policy outcome, but at the moment we need to look at the harm it's trying to heal.
Thank you, Maliba. Let's talk about nurses and doctors.
Yes.
Nurses refusing to join the strike. They're saying, we began the conversation, right? A doctor is saying we are not going back to the hospitals, and then clinical officers joining, and then we have laboratory technicians saying we are jogging to do this. So tonight we are told by the head of public service, Felix Koske, that they don't have the 12 billion shillings that is needed to take some 1,200 plus interns into the job market. I sat here with the CS Health, and she sat where Maliba is standing. Coincidentally, you just decided to sit there. So
this is the government position on this show.
On the right, that's the government position. Yes. So, Prof, again, what is going to happen? Because the doctors are saying we are not yielding. The government is unfazed. They're saying, what do you mean? Felix Koske comes out and says, we don't even have the money. Maliba told us off air that, no, we start picking the letters tomorrow. What is going to happen? Because we went today to Kenyatta National Hospital. The sorry state, the statement that there's pictures and videos and testimonies, I mean, it's disturbing. What's going to happen?
Yeah, first of all, it's very unfortunate. Let me first of all express my heartfelt, let's say, mercy to those people who are suffering in hospital and there's no doctor. You know, in this world, Ken, when there's no hope, life becomes very hard. Can you imagine lying in a hospital and you know there's no doctor coming? You know, when you go to hospital and you see there's a doctor coming, there's somebody trying to check your blood pressure, you calm down a little bit. But can you imagine you are being in a hospital bed and you are totally hopeless? So this is hopelessness. And I can say you guys said the title that is the shame of a nation. I think that is shame. And I want to say that what is key here is, do you think that whatever the doctors are asking for and the interns are asking for is not something that could be budgeted for? The country normally does what's called national census, isn't it? And they do national census for the sake of planning. They know how many households are in Kenya. They should know how many beds, like let's say general ward beds, high dependency unit beds, ICU beds, how many doctors they require, how many nurses they require. Even WHO has got standards, how many physicians per population and nurses and all those things. Do you want to tell me Kenya Kwanza took up government and they just walk up there, then see doctors on the street, then they're trying to look for money? Do you want to tell me that when they were doing a budget for 2023, 2024, they never knew that nurses, doctors need to be paid, and they never knew how many interns they required? According to me, I do not think that this is just something which has happened by accident. This is something that they knew, because if they don't know, how would you not know about your country? And the data is there. The people who call these interns or start taking out these jobs, is it Azimio that brought them? They were already there. So according to me, there's a budget. There should be money. Saying there's no money is not an excuse. The day that politicians will be told there's no money to pay them, I want to see one day when these MPs, these CSS can also go to the city and say, our salary cannot be paid because there's no money. How comes for other people there's no money, but for some people there's always money and even more? State House has been spending more than the budget. Nobody is spending more than budget. In fact, Ken, when I'll become a head of state one day, I'll show you people how budget should be done. These people do what's called budget allocation. They never actually budget. They never budget. What do I mean by that? All the budgets are in a piece of paper, in an Excel sheet read in Parliament, but the money is not there. The way budget should be done is that when I'm telling you, I have given healthcare this money, that money should be in the account that they can spend. They only do what's called accounting. But here in Kenya, they say we have allocated to Metenga, but you never see the money. I can give you, for example, the Kenya Tourism Board can tell you that when they get allocated, let's say, for example, 400 million, the disbursement at the end of the year can be around 120 million. Why should you just allocate? Where State House can be allocated 1.2 billion, isn't it? But they'll end up spending 3.2 billion. How come some people overspend, others underspend? So that's misuse. Then I want to answer the question about nurses. I talk to nurses because I've done a lot of work in healthcare in Kenya. In Strathmore, we helped set up the School of Institute of Healthcare Management. So there's a nurse who told me, and I think this is a lesson doctors have to get, that whenever they join doctors on the street, immediately doctors get what they want, doctors go back to work, isn't it? And nurses get nothing. So I want to urge all the health professionals, you should be united. Go to the street with the strategy of unity. No one should leave the streets until everybody gets what they went to the street for. But when somebody's been told, you know, the government do what's called divide and rule. Like now they're telling people, I'm going to get some people who are interns from, I don't know, KMTC, bring them here. They should say no. Because if you are taken for KMTC to go and hold, let's say, work for doctors so that they can be divided by the government, tomorrow you'll be a doctor. Tomorrow you'll be a nurse. Can the health fraternity be united in a way that they have one voice? But having too many voices which are not working in unison is a problem. Lastly, I disagree there's no money. Ken?
Yes.
What is 12 billion to Kenya Kwanza government? Like, seriously speaking, these 12 billion shillings, we know where we get it. William Ruto said he's going to cut the budget by 300 billion, isn't it? And actually the budget went up by around 400, it was actually 420 billion shillings. You hear the Kenyan budget for 2024, 2025 is 4.2 trillion. The budget he found when Uhuru had done his was 3.01 trillion. He put it to 3.6 trillion. Now it has gone to 4.2 trillion. Why is healthcare here? Abuja declaration is clear that we should spend 15% of our GDP on health. Kenya is spending 3%. Yes, they signed those declarations. So according to me, there is money. There is money. In fact, there is more than money. Secondly,
so what is, because you've spoken so much, I need to go to Maliba.
Lastly,
yes,
we have been told we lose 2 billion shillings a day by Uhuru Kenyatta. That is during his time. During this time, we have been told corruption has doubled. So we are losing 4 billion per day. 4 billion per day, these guys are looking for 12 billion for a year, isn't it? So it is just like after 4 days or 3 days,
they're able to pay.
From the money we are losing per day, they're able to pay them.
But
so
those statistics, I really want to know where those statistics
no, but
of 4 billion, progressive corruption,
what he has to do,
I really want to see
do,
where it is.
when Uhuru said that, William Ruto is the president. He can ask Auditor General. Auditor General was there in Parliament, in Boma, saying that we have budgeted corruption.
Yes.
And I can tell you, for each item you buy, there's corruption money inside it.
Okay, let's bring Maliba in.
First of all, it's important to condemn the ongoing absconding of duty by doctors because there's no doctor strike. We are a country under the rule of law, and there is a court order stopping that particular
industrial action.
Okay. And since the same doctors are going to court at some point, if they are aggrieved, you know, the court as the shrine of justice, that to them that approach it, and to them from whom the word comes from, the shrine to them, it should actually be an edict that is respected. When the doctors go to court to seek redress, they expect the other parties on the other side to respect that. But when the same court actually makes an order, the doctors against the doctors are against that. So, and why do I say that it's important to actually condemn this? Because doctors are essential service providers. It's not like Professor here who actually, he's in the business of selling education. There's proof that human beings can live without education. They are creatures that have no brain, and they have lived much longer. I'm talking about people here who are essential service providers, and for them, a strike is like a nuclear option. We do not arm ourselves with nuclear weapons thinking that we will lose it. Because the concept is the MAD concept, where it's mutual destruction, right? Mutually assured destruction. So doctors and any other person who provides essential services cannot wave around the strike option like it's a joke, because the consequences out of it are actually fatal. That having been said,
before you go to your second point, I hope you won't lose your trail of thought.
Yes.
But I need to ask you this.
Yeah.
You're using the court's ruling to tell the doctors stop absconding duties to go back.
Because that's what they are doing. So long as there's a court order, there is no strike. What we see are people who have absconded duty.
Talk to me about the fact that the same labor court registered a collective bargaining agreement, CBA, and told the Ministry of Health back in 2017 must honor this CBA. And it was registered by the same court. Why are you forgetting that part?
I have not forgotten that, because I remember what I want to call the Kericho, let me call it the Kericho Declaration last year, right? I also want to recall the matrix that they actually signed against and worked on, right? And the government side said that because there's a budgeting process, I've actually had a professor here define budgeting in a very strange manner. But again, how people define things is actually not really strange in the way budgeting is done globally. Because Professor here, according to Professor, a budget can only be if anyone is liquid. That when you're talking about a budget, that money must be in the account. I'm yet to see a country in the world. This man has just landed from another universe, because there is no country that defines budgets the way he does. Even the country in Central Europe. No one has got, including the ones with oil that we talk about, they don't define budgets the way he's actually thinking. Yes, what they are raising, and then how they are going to spend. No one.
I'm glad he said one day when he'll be the head of state, he will show us how that budgeting is done. Why don't we leave it to his doorstep?
That's what I'm actually saying. So let's start from this particular end. So we are here. The governors and the national government, and I am using the word governance deliberately because there has been an attempt by some unions to try and engage COG, COG is not an employer. Try to enforce some of these CBS from a COG perspective. COG is not an employer. The employer is counties. So sometimes it becomes difficult. So, and they even know, because they're very brilliant human beings, that sometimes when you push to actually, they'll be engaging an illegal entity that does not even pay their salaries. So, be that as it is, doctors initially had about 21 asks when they put in the strike notice. Of course, it's been mutating. It's about 9. Now, what is more prominent, we're talking about just about 4 of them. The basic salary arrears from 2017. Then we're talking about the issue of the interns and everything else. If you look at everything, I'm looking at the Laboratory and Technologies Union, for example. Their biggest problem is recognition. They want...
That's their problem?
That is the biggest problem.
Okay.
But they have got 9 demands. There are counties, for example, that have actually acceded to some of those demands. But then, even for people like Bungoma who have acceded to that, somehow there's no difference between Bungoma and Kajiado, for example, that has not signed that. So, there is a fiscal consequence that must actually be talked about. There are fiscal considerations to this. Because it's so easy for guys to say, a recognition is not a big thing. But once you've actually recognized, because unions are like the proverbial camel. Once they bring in the head, soon there will be the hump and they will actually throw you out. So, everything that we are talking about, all those demands have got a financial implication to it. When they talk, they will actually be very eloquent and tell you, nah, there's no financial, some of these things are so easy. But when you sit down from a government, stop him raising his hand and threatening me with that hand. I kept quiet when he spoke and went on and on. So, let me say this, that for all those asks, whether they are 21, 9 or 4, depending on whatever.
They've been collapsed.
Whatever they try to collapse them,
yes.
Whatever you look at it, it has got a physical consequence and baseline to it. You can't run away to that, from that. I have spoken about this essential service, the service they actually provide.
Yeah.
But can we also talk about this? What we have today are what I call Weetabix unions. Because union leadership that we have today are so weak that they rush to use the ultimate weapon.
Which is Article 37.
When they fail to negotiate, when they fail in the management of unions and the affairs of labor administration, they rush to this particular end because for them, they would rather have the public being hurt. By the way, it is a leadership that has not really anchored itself properly. You know, and I want, the good thing is that I know that you are related to a former teacher who was a unionist, a strong one. If you see how at some point, teaching was the lowest paying government job. See how the unionists over time have actually strengthened the teaching fraternity and how they worked around that. What we see today are people who are quite reactionary. Of course, there is a problem here, and we're talking about from 2017. So the government of the day and where we are today has had its own failure. So we cannot say that the government is 100% clean.
Okay.
But we can also not take away these from the unions and how they've actually, for example, they've left some of these things to actually go around. Governors, for example, said, some of these things we will do in June. We are not yet in June. Some of these things, because of the budgeting cycle, we will do them in September.
They've not done. Okay, Maliba, I get you. We are prolonging this. KMPDU has declined. This is the latest. Has declined the proposal that you're saying.
Yes.
Secretary General Atela says medics excluded in negotiation process insist appointment letters will not be picked until the demands are met and the 2017 CBA is fully implemented. Maliba, that's where we are, and that's what I want us to address.
It's actually the headline. It's actually the headline on the newspaper. Let me just finish on.
How do you know it's the headline? You already have the headline.
I have actually read the paper.
Okay.
I realize one thing.
Yeah, just briefly because I need to go
just
to
shortly. Yeah. Can I actually just repeat this so that then we don't rush through? This is a very important discussion. That no one is trivializing the issues raised by the unions. No one.
They are pertinent issues.
They are important issues. Then what we also are asking is that on the other side of government is that we should be able to listen to them. Because again, no one in government is in the business of ensuring that people are suffering in hospitals. If there are people who love to be loved are politicians. Politicians love to be loved. So they are not in the business of frustrating Kenyans for sport. But then there are physical considerations that actually have to be put in place. So we are coming at a place where we shouldn't be talking to each other. We should reduce the difference. We should reduce the distance between these particular issues. But what we are saying here is that if you look at all those issues, whether you choose to look at them as 21, as 9 or 4, is that they cannot be done at once. It needs to be procedural. Now that doctors have decided to abscond, we take cognizance of that and say, can we have a return to work formula that actually works around this?
I think I want to say the following, Maliba, for a way just to educate a little bit what you are trying to say, that they cannot be done at once. You've read there that doctors, Atela has said that you have to accept the collective bargain agreement, isn't it? Collective means that the government was part of it, isn't it? So they're not coming with demands from the moon and throwing them down.
And this has been there for how many years? 2017, 7 years?
Yes, for 7 years.
Yes.
So for 7 years, they do their budget and they don't care about the doctors. And I want to remind Maliba, I like what you have said, that you have recognized that doctors offer essential service and they're essential service providers. Why are they not essential in the budget-making process? Why are they not essential in salary payment?
That's my question, because this has been there for a while.
And by the way, reactionary question.
Maliba,
it's so reactionary because
by the way, they have been paying.
He has been
they
in
have been
governance
paying.
the way
Suddenly,
they
are revising the payment.
They've been paying.
He has been doing memorandums.
Prof, let me finish my point.
If you
I've gone to Parliament.
Yes.
I've gone to Parliament to petition Parliament that we cannot allow doctors to go into the street because they are taking Hippocratic oath. Hippocratic oath cannot be lived in a vacuum. That you have taken an oath, you are an essential worker, you cannot go on strike, yet everybody is going on strike on you. Your pocket is on strike. They have come with so many levies to reduce what doctors are earning. There's another person told me that after Kenya Kwanza became into government, he has lost 112,000 shillings from his payslip just because of these levies and deductions.
Which levies are these?
You know them. Everyone knows.
Let's not go there.
Let's not go there.
Ken, it's important.
Maliba, let's not go there.
In God we trust. Everybody else must bring data.
Yes.
This is an evidence-based platform.
Levy.
He cannot show up here. 1.5%. How is that?
Today the front
I think it depends on the amount of money someone is earning.
Okay, that 1.5%. He's saying so many levies. The second one?
Today the front page of the People's
Daily. Do you
Daily.
Want us to go there, Maliba?
Have you realized that
the numbers
he's not answering the question?
He's not answered that.
Yeah.
Today's front page of People's Daily said robbery without violence.
No, he wants the data. He wants you to justify how the 121 comes. Is it a single levy? Is it a single levy?
Several.
Which and which?
Now, that's what he's asking. Which
He's
one?
adding the deductions.
Yeah.
House levy.
Which is house levy, which is just taking effect in March.
Isn't it?
Which is taking NSSF is a new one. He's talking about they have increased.
No, he's not talking about new.
He said they have increased levies.
They have increased
many levies. I want him to list that.
Guys, are we getting lost somewhere?
You see, Prof must actually choose his profession so well.
Maliba, okay, hold on, gentlemen. Prof, if you say this, it has to be qualified.
Yes.
Are there many levies or an additional levies that has escalated the pay slip to this?
Yes, they have escalated additional levies.
So, which additional levies?
Are
we
these
need
additional
new,
levies?
are they the new ones or just the ones that have been added on top of
Is
what
it
existed?
quantitative or you're talking about qualitative?
Quantitative.
Quantitative.
Let's go. List them.
Yes.
List them.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention a name and someone's salary, but I'm sure that someone is listening to me, isn't it? If you are for example, if you're earning 1.2 million shillings, isn't it? And someone takes away from you 1.5%, isn't it? That is how much, Maliba? That's how much.
I want you to compute that so that then we speak to percentage.
Yes, what I'm trying to tell you is that when you're earning something to do with...
Because if you run with the
if you're
absolute
earning
figures...
around 1.8 million shillings...
How many Kenyans earn that?
If you look at all the deductions and levies going into it, you'll be losing around 100.
Let's conclude this.
Out of 3.5 million Kenyans who earn official salaries.
Maliba, I need to end this.
We have got less than 3% who earn above 100,000. So who is this friend of yours who earns 1.8?
We are digressing.
He's using one misnomer of data and trying to push a falsehood and a narrative. Because 3% of Kenyans, and above 100,000.
He has stated.
He's pushing above
We need to end this
person.
conversation. We need to end this
One
conversation.
person.
Maliba,
let me get to my point.
Maliba.
His point is faulty.
No,
He said a CFO of the bank. Now we
A
understand.
CFO of the bank.
Now we understand where it's coming
And
from.
he wants
Prof,
to use
conclude.
a 1% against the rest of 99%.
Maliba, can we focus?
And if you were to equate that with the people who are earning 20,000, you will realize
Maliba, can
that
we focus?
120,000 he's complaining about is peanuts to that CFO of the bank.
112,000 cannot be a peanut to anybody.
No.
Lose 1 shilling that you're not getting
That is
every
not
month.
true.
Gentlemen, we are digressing
He's
and I'm
talking
going
about
out of-
a
I'm
people,
running out of
Ken,
time. I'm
he's
gonna
talking
end this
about a
conversation.
people who can actually buy a bottle of alcohol at 40,000 shillings one night. He's the one who's saying that that's not much money.
Me, I don't
My
drink
friend, those
alcohol.
people are not the same.
Anyway, Ken, let me finish my point.
Let's come back.
The
Let's
other
come back
thing,
to
the other
this.
thing I was talking about here is that healthcare is devolved, 90% devolved, isn't it? We are looking at the amount of money the government retains. They have retained 65% of the money allocated to healthcare to remain with research and strategy. Can you imagine research and strategy? It retains 65%, only gives 35% to the counties. I want to urge them to put more money in healthcare, especially in counties. Because they are just employing people, but there's no medicine.
But Prof, how do you go ahead to urge a government that is unfazed, that is saying we don't have the money, and KMPDU is telling us tonight we're not reporting, Maliba is telling us pick the letters tomorrow, KMPDU is saying we are not doing it, we have a stalemate, we have pictures from hospitals.
No, but I'm
what
saying,
discussion are we having?
KMPDU is using
I think
those photos from hospitals to try and incite Kenyans. And but they remember they had 100-day strike, which in and of itself is actually very unfair.
2017, Maliba.
100 days.
Maliba, can Prof finish
And
then?
since the 100-day, for example, the basic salary arrears from 2017 to 2021, this new government now is the one that is taking care of them. And now we are flogging them.
2.4B.
I'm just telling you, when you remember 2017 who was in power, right? And you are flogging this administration and making it
that
look
was also in power.
No, that's not how it works. You know that much better.
The deputy president then is the president.
One person. The government is not one person.
But he was privy to what was happening
I'll
in
just tell you that
2017.
just because
Maliba, you
he
can't
has been
give
in
an
academia
excuse.
for long,
You cannot give
that
an
then
excuse.
if there's a problem in the academia, he is one of the reasons. He's not, definitely.
He was privy to what was happening in 2017 as the deputy president. Yes. True or false?
So he's being flogged for that.
He's not being flogged. They're just saying implement the CBA so that we move on. Don't go to SRC.
Implementing a CBA is not like picking a storybook and reading. I said, number one, there are physical consequences. Number two, there are administrative challenges.
Did they
number
know
three,
that there was a fiscal consequence?
And that is why the government is saying, can we do this procedurally? Can we have the reason?
Go back
because
on what
there is no goodwill. There is no good faith.
Okay, Maliba. Okay, Maliba. You need to finish also, Prof.
Let me tell you.
Yes,
No, but I'm not finishing.
Yes.
When
Actually, the professor takes much longer.
No. If you're taking his time now, and we
It
have
takes
10
much
minutes.
longer.
We have 10 minutes.
We can measure this using AI, artificial intelligence.
No, I'll just put on here.
Let me continue, my brother. I think that in all honesty, he's talking about the previous government. There's what you call a government being a going concern. The obligations of previous government, you must inherit them. And you must execute them. Because you cannot tell me this was Uhuru's government. There's no Uhuru's government. In fact, I hate this thing people personally as a government. There's a government of Kenya. In fact, there's no Kenya Kwanza government. We have a government
when we started,
of Kenya.
He said, this Kenya Kwanza government.
Yes, of course.
That's an oxymoron.
Of course, because they have... Maliba, come on.
Maliba.
That's how we started.
Maliba,
We were on this particular
I have
platform.
10 minutes. I know.
When he said,
you will have
now he has changed.
You will react to it.
Anything I say hurts you, my brother.
No, it doesn't. Why would I be hurt? I'm just reminding you
So
that you cannot eat your tomatoes and have them.
I'm seeing a stalemate in this. We are not getting away forward in the doctors.
So what I'm trying to say here is that a government is a going concern. Even in accounting, there must be a going concern. Even if you borrow money for 50 years, there is no one who rules for 50 years. You only rule for 5, 10 years, isn't it? So that has to continue. So they should not separate Uhuru Kenyatta government and the government headed by William Ruto. This Kenya is what you call government of Kenya. That's all. Then I'll talk about devolution. I was trying to prosecute by saying that they are retaining too much money. Because you ask why is the money. Government. Yes, you are returning too much money at the national level, and not giving much money to the county government, where healthcare takes place.
How much are they retaining? In total, it's about 50-60%?
They are retaining 65%.
65%.
Yet it is 90% devolved.
Okay.
I should be thinking the amount, there should be a correlation between the devolution level and the amount of money being retained.
Okay.
So that one for me is something they need to change about. And the last thing, which is I want to really give as advice, a government that takes power normally have a social contract with the people. Like they took a social contract with the patients, not with the doctors, that there will be health care. There will be universal health care coverage. They never said, we'll give you treatment if doctors don't go on strike. So the third-party blame is not supposed to be there. Me, I'm saying at this time, we have a failed state. Why? Because a state where people cannot have health care, then blaming doctors is not the issue, because you are a government. The government should tell us what is the alternative if doctors continue being on strike, because it is not your control if they'll come out tomorrow. They should continue executing and prosecuting the social contract. Last point, which for me is very important. We have had problems during the doctor strike whereby you pick not so qualified people to take care of patients, and there's a lot of negligences, and there'll be a lot of mistakes. For example, there's a time when physicians, clinicians were allowed to do surgeries. You know, there are surgeries that even they're allowed to do, which they are not qualified to do. People have lost families. People have lost babies. People have lost everything. And it can be so detrimental. I want to tell Kenya Kwanza that the most important thing is that let's choose their priorities. Priority should be healthcare, education, and people's living, cost of living. Other things should come later, whereby you are pushing too much on our throat. The issue of affordable housing.
No, don't go there. We will start a topic.
I'm not saying we don't.
That is a conversation.
Let us prioritize
He's so good with
health
that.
because health is life.
Let's stick there. Health is life. Maliba now.
Ken, I'll start from here so that then we don't go so far. First of all, Prof is throwing around data left, right, and center that is not centered on anything. For example, if you were to look at this 90% devolved part of it, he's not told you and quantified whether that is about, we're talking about primary health care at what level, and then what the national government retains. Who's doing the training? National government. Who's doing quality assurance? At that particular, the referral system, they are doing that, and so much more. So when he runs around and talks about 90%, it's not based on anything other than conjecture. He has not pegged that on the framework, on how we actually have the health framework in this particular country. So that 90 figure, only him knows where he has actually fished it from. And when Kenyans are listening on the other side, they could actually think, because he's a professor, they will actually buy that hook, line, and sinker, when he actually has fished it from nowhere. I can tell you, I challenge you that after I've spoken, let him actually tell you exactly what constitutes the healthcare system and what that 90% is. This is conjecture. It's actually data he's just fished out from somewhere else. God knows where he got that.
In your view, it's how much?
Secondly,
we need to allow Maliba also to talk.
When he spoke, I allowed that.
We need to allow Maliba to talk, then we challenge
it. Let me execute my point. I'm just telling you, I'm actually bringing down. He's used that number. And by the way, if you torture data so much, it actually confesses to anything you want. And that's what Professor has done. He's torturing data left, right, and center, so long as it can stick on Kenya Kwanza not being inefficient and everything else. And the Professor here has actually perfected the art of being a merchant of venom. He's here selling sob stories about how he's making very serious allegations, and he has not reported that to the agency that is actually in charge, where clinicians have operated. He's not done that. He knows, by the way, much better the agency that is actually in charge of that and how that he should actually go to court on that. Other than come here, sell a sob story, run around with it, incite Kenyans, and not help them. From where we are, the issue of the doctors or the medics strike is not one we should not be winning, we should not be arguing about who wins. Because like I've told you, people's lives are online. Number two, doctors are not your ordinary service providers. Therefore, we would expect and pray that KPMDU and all the other unions
come to the realization.
Not really come to the realization, but also as government makes progress. Like, for example, they've been fighting on this since 2017, right? Now, there is an attempt at solving some of those issues, right? You saw what Hobbs, the head of public service, did. Came up with a 13-member committee, tried to bring down some of these issues. There is even a court order. Ken, we should not run away from this thing called the rule of law. Because if today doctors defy that court order, tomorrow, government which has got actually a monopoly of violence, if they chose to, and KPMDU has got an issue that is so dear to them, they go to court and government pulls the same thing, then we will be running around talking about impunity. Impunity cannot only apply to those who are in office.
Maliba, can I ask a simple question?
Also applies to them who should be obeying, even those who are out.
Can I ask a simple question?
Yes.
Just if you answer that question, I'm home and dry with this.
Yes.
This CBA was signed in 2017.
Yes.
Forget the circumstances
prevailing
at that time.
Yes.
The doctors have been patiently waiting for the last 7 years for this CBA to be implemented. They gave us strike notice and they said the reasons for this strike notice. And the government of the day is aware. Then you come and tell us now that we have to renegotiate. The doctors are saying, but we've had this from 2017. Please renegotiate. And then they say, this is what we can give you. This one we can't give you. Go back to the... So you bully them back to... Maliba, is this the solution of the government should be bothering itself with? How do we honor this CBA? That is the question I want you to answer.
I might not agree with how the current CS has dealt with this issue. But in 2017, where was Nahumicha? She wasn't in the room that signed that.
I'm
guessing, yes, there was a government. That's what I'm saying. So here, what we are not talking to is that there was the Kericho Declaration, right? Or rather, I want to call it the Kericho Declaration, the Kericho Accord, and everything else. It was an attempt by this administration, because, by the way, watches also matter. On whose watch was the Kericho Declaration effected?
Okay.
It was effected under the Kenya Kwanza administration. What were they dealing with? They were dealing with issues that were 6 years long in the mouth. And they came up with a framework. There are few issues that are behind schedule, but this is the truth. That as a country, we are having a fiscal deficit.
Okay.
We are struggling. We've just taken care of this Eurobond the other day. Everybody knew that we were defaulting. Forget the people who sell snake oil like Prof here who are telling you that there's so much money. There's not so much money. Otherwise, if there was so much money, as he actually tries to tell you, politicians will do magic, because politicians can even print money if it is going to ensure that they are popular and they are serving the people. So forget whatever he's saying here.
So what is your answer?
So the point is this.
Yes.
The point is this, that the government of the day engaged from last year, Kericho Declaration. 2, we've actually allowed everybody to engage at their level so that then governors can actually deal at what they're supposed to do. Let me ask you, the governor of Kirinyaga, for example, fired some clinical officers a long time ago, right?
And it didn't work?
No. It is one of the reasons the clinical officers are on the roads today, right? How are the people of Kakamega, whose governor did not fire anyone, paying for this? And we call that rational. We want to run that and sentimentalize it to a point that, okay, they are right and government is wrong. A mistake that was done in Kirinyaga, in a devolved unit, let's call it a mistake. How are the people of Busia, whose government did not do that, why are they paying for that?
I get your point.
So what am I saying?
Yes,
I am saying that the unions, no one is trivializing what they are saying, but we need union leadership that has got a little bit of a backbone. Not people who run. If vita kidogo wanaleta silaha ya nini, as in it's a conversation that they should not be bringing up this issue as strike.
If they feel that they are not being listened to, they'll invoke Article 37.
You cannot take the ultimate weapon for a small disagreement.
Because the government did not expect them to put that.
You know what?
They did not expect that.
No, you know what is interesting? Everything that does not affect me is small. When you don't pay someone's salary, you condemn them to poverty. That's small. Someone cannot afford a meal.
Government has moved forward to effect that.
Deductions for NSSF, 4 years in Mombasa. Linda Ugatuzi, Linda Jamii that I ran, I have those data. In Mombasa, they told me deductions have been 4 years back. Joho used to pay 3, 4. Now they are 5.
5 years.
So it is clear. Then I wanted just to tell.
Joho used to pay?
It used to take 3 or 4. Now it's getting to 5 years.
Before
deductions don't begin. These people have loans.
Yeah.
Imagine you have a loan. You are not able to pay a loan, and someone tells you that thing
and it's been deducted from your salary. I hear you, Prof. We're running out of time.
Let me make my point here, because there's something I want to bring Maliba to
just
get clear.
Briefly, yes.
when you tell me that 65%...
And we still have the video of the week,
yes,
by the way.
if you say 65% is returned up here, where the national government, then 25,000 going to the counties paying salaries, that is 90% going to OPEX, meaning that pay recurrent expenditure. None is going to buy medicine. That's why in all healthcare facilities, you go to the counties, there is no medicine.
I think
because
90% is a lie.
I
You
get
know,
the implication.
Prof cannot say that there are no medicine in all hospitals, and we live in this country. Prof, which country do
They
you
have
live
heard
in?
you. Kenyans have heard you.
I'm just saying, this is a lie. There are medicines in hospitals. It might not be to the place, the private hospitals that he goes to.
You are given prescription, you got to buy elsewhere.
Go buy from
Go buy elsewhere. That's what happens.
Gentlemen,
Prof is an
this-
upmarket guy, so he thinks that everybody must be
do you know
given.
where I was born?
You know, he goes to hospital yenye wanapatiwanga dawa kama chakula. As unapatiwa chakula kwa nini. But the rest of Kenyans actually who use government services, and they are very effective. That's what the majority are.
Okay.
So when you use sweeping statements that there are no medicines, who has trained all these doctors? Who is equipping these hospitals? Who has put up the standards? This system is functioning because there is a government in place.
What we wanted explanation about was the 90% devolved and
It
65%.
is there in the Constitution.
No.
No, where does the Constitution talk about 90%?
It's
Healthcare
devolved services.
is not 100%
percent devolved, yes. So the 90%, how you
How
got to
did you
90%?
arrive to
But that's the
90%?
number.
Yes,
How did you
we-
arrive at it? Quantify.
What has been
Devolution in healthcare is stated clearly. It is 90% devolved.
in the Constitution?
Yes.
Quantify.
Yes, in the county
Constitution.
government, yes, 90% devolved. This is a fact.
Okay.
Call Dr.
No,
Dagji, call
you
Doctor.
have asked him to quantify
If you
He is
refuse
not.
90, which number is devolved?
No, I'm talking about, can
No,
you
you refuse
quantify,
90.
break
Can
it
you
down?
give your number?
No, I want you to
No,
break
you
down.
give your number.
Look at this, you made a claim.
It is clear.
Substantiate.
Even you
Clear
can
where?
Google that one. You can
You
search
cannot
it.
be telling us that the law is clear.
What is your
Here, we are
percentage,
asking
Maliba?
here.
Okay.
He's not cited
What is your
any law.
percentage?
He's not cited a specific one.
What's your percentage?
Okay, gentlemen, I need to play the video of the week, then we'll end the show. Let's roll.
Tangu tupate uhuru, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta alikuwa president wa Kenya miaka 15. Ninyi mnajua namna hiyo? Alikufia kwa ofisi. Mwai Kibaki marehemu akakuwa president miaka 10, si ndio? Yeye akakuwa 25. Uhuru Kenyatta akakuwa president miaka 10, ikakuwa 35. Jamii ya Kikuyu wamesema hiyo imewatosha. Hawataki mambo ya ulafi, hiyo imewatosha. Jamii ya Kalenjin Mzee Moi aligonga 24. Hiyo record hata tukiishi miaka mingapi haitawahi kunjwa. 24. Mheshimiwa Ruto hako saa hizi ndio? Mungu akimjalia aende yake 10 atakuwa amegonga miaka 34 wa Kalenjin. Jamii mbili imegonga miaka 69 kama rais wa Kenya, si ndio? Wapiga bwana.
Okay, gentlemen, the context of that discussion is what is going on in the country. And just because we have run out of time, I just wanted your brief comments. And this one I'll begin with Maliba. Maliba, what's happening in Western between Moses Wetangula and Natembeya? Just briefly, we are out of time.
I think what's happening in Western Kenya is not unique to Western Kenya. It's happening in other areas. But then to just pack the question where you wanted it to be, is that number one, generally, we now have got what I call a generational handover. And that millennials and the guys just ahead of them are now becoming the core people who actually get into the spaces of decision making. So it's a demographic imperative.
Okay.
And you look at Western, today as we speak, millennials are the people who actually are the biggest voting bloc. These human beings between 26 and 43. That is the core of the voting bloc. Now, literally, everybody else, what is happening under our nose is that there's a change of guard. It's been gradual, but now we are getting to a place where now, quote unquote, the young tax actually get in. But specifically for Natembeya and Moses Wetangula, it's so easy. And that also plugs into what we were discussing today, especially on the health issue, that Natembeya feels threatened, that the party leader of Ford Kenya has been going around bringing in somebody else to actually take over. So he's actually fighting a defensive battle.
Okay.
And instead of fighting the person who has been brought in there, who's being prepared to unseat him,
He's fighting
he has
the
decided.
bringer.
He has decided that he will not deal with any dog.
Yes.
He will deal with the
dog
owner
owner.
of the... So that's what is happening there, generally.
Yeah.
But
Prof,
anyway.
yeah. I'll
According
give
to,
you a minute to close on the health issue. Don't worry.
according to me, it is unfortunate what's happening in all these regions, because I don't like when people cite tribes. I don't know what is our time. All these things does not matter. What is important is that what leader does Kenya want in 2027, not more of which tribe has gotten. Because we might actually need another Kikuyu to lead Kenya in 2027. Because if the Kikuyu is the most suited person, why not? And I do not like the politics on Natembeya because he has not told us what is his purpose. You know, nowadays talk about purpose leadership. What do you identify with? In fact, the crisis we're having in the country, now we're talking about succession, which is happening in Luo Nyanza. It's having a challenge here in Mount Kenya, now in Western Kenya, is that we are people who are very popular, but they're not popular for any purpose.
Okay.
You know, if, for example, those who are going home, for example, Raila Odinga are going to AU, isn't it? What was Raila's philosophy in education, isn't it? What was Raila's philosophy in ODM that someone can actually inherit? If you're inheriting an ODM, what are you inheriting?
Okay.
Are you inheriting an ideology? Because parties have, there's actually, according to me, there's no political parties in Kenya. They're just things people use as vehicles to get to power. So according to me, Natembeya, if he's believing he's championing the next generation, he should start saying, which kind of philosophy, ideology, leadership do we want?
Okay.
And we forget about the issues of name calling and tribalism, because the more we mention those tribes, the more we become very strong. And I can tell you, only politicians come to remind you during elections that you are this tribe, that tribe. But I can tell you, all Kenyans live harmoniously. Where I live with all the communities in the same place. We have never even quarreled on a parking space.
Okay.
Why do we quarrel only on the ballot?
Okay. Because you're speaking, I'll give you your closing remarks on the issues we discussed, especially the medical. What do you want to see tomorrow when we wake up? Because patients are suffering. 30 seconds.
I would like to wake up tomorrow and I want the doctors to go back to work. But before that, the conditions they have given is favorable enough. And I want to urge doctors to stand on those conditions. The only person to change their mind is the government. But in the long term, I urge doctors, set up the Health Service Commission to address for you these issues, just like Teacher Service Commission is helping them.
Well said, Prof. Well said. Maliba, 30 seconds. Tomorrow when we wake up, the government, are we seeing them moved because nothing has changed? 30 seconds, Tafadhali.
This is the position. It's not about the government. It's about all stakeholders. And specifically here, the medics, the unions, to actually come back to the table and stop this politics of terrorism. Because now we have got people who are suffering, and since it makes government look ineffective, inefficient, incompetent, uncaring, we use that and push that. Let's not be so selfish. Government has actually made a move, obtained a budget, paid arrears that were from 2017 to 2021. We are at a place where
to pay the rest,
the interns have been told to pick their letters from tomorrow.
They've said they're not picking, so just tell us.
No, the interns themselves have not spoken. It is the union.
The union has spoken. They speak to the union. Maliba, I'm going to close the show.
The union has got members.
They can't all come and
There is no union of interns. So we're just saying, as in these are guys who are not even yet in the industry. So that is just one of those.
They are in the industry.
No, those are some of the issues they are using to sensationalize these issues. But this is the issue. For all interns out there, in the name of God, pick your letters. For all medics out there, speak to your leaders. And for the union leaders, demonstrate leadership.
Okay.
What we see now is not leadership. The government has demonstrated leadership. We have got constraints as a people. We do not exist. This particular crisis does not exist in isolation.
Thank you.
Please look at everything. Let us come up with a framework and engage again. It doesn't hurt to engage.
Well said. I hope they find a solution by tomorrow. Patients are suffering. That's all we know. The patients are suffering as this standoff escalates. And now, government, we don't have money. Take it or leave it. KMPDU, we are not taking it. We are leaving it. Thank you so much for watching, Prof. Always a pleasure having you on board. Fred, I'm looking forward to having another discussion. And Maliba, thank you so much. Arnold Maliba for coming on the show tonight. And on behalf of Polycarp Omondi and everyone that has made this show possible, have a good night. God bless. We do this again whenever we have an opportunity. Other great guests, especially this time, bringing them back. Good night and God bless.
KTN News. Get the whole story.